These are the faces of modern-day sex traffickers, Albanian gangsters responsible for a shocking new crime wave, forcing young girls into prostitution.
They're killing people for money, they're raping, doing very, very bad things only for money.
It's happening everywhere. Just in London's Soho, Albanians control 3/4 of the brothels.
I didn't believe that, like, in the 21st century that this sort of thing happened anymore.
This is probably one of the bedrooms where a young 15-year-old would have been brought to, raped.
But how did they get here? How do they operate? And why are they targeting the UK?
I'm Raggy Omar, and I'm going in search of the violent gangs, the high-tech fraudsters, and the organised networks that are the new face of Britain's criminal underworld.
Twenty-first century prostitution in Britain has a nasty edge. The girls are getting younger. The prices for their trade lower.
£20,
An incredible 85% of the girls are foreigners.
120, 130.
And it's an industry that's been taken over by brutal Albanian gangsters. We'll be going undercover to find out how vicious the industry has become and how the Albanian gangs operate. And I'll be following the horrific case of Elena, a 15-year-old girl sex trafficked into Britain.
In my teenage years, you'd walk around Soho. One remembers all these women in the doorway saying, "Come on, darling, do you want to come in here and see this peep show?" Now, it's become an industry, and that's a very important word because, to me, industry means, product, organisation, profit on a mass scale. It's an industry, one controlled, though, by the criminal underworld.
My investigation into sex trafficking gangs begins in Sheffield. Elena was a 15-year-old Lithuanian girl who was sex trafficked into England after being enticed with a summer job as a waitress. The head of South Yorkshire Police's People Trafficking Unit, Detective Sergeant Alistair Duncan, was brought in to investigate this shocking case.
This is where the 15-year-old victim was taken to when she arrived in Sheffield. She was taken up there and raped.
Detective Constable Darren Booth works with the victims of trafficking, and he's asked us to keep his identity hidden. He told me the gangsters go to great lengths to obtain young women, and in Elena's case, this meant tricking her parents into signing documents allowing her to travel abroad alone.
Because of her age, she has to get permission from her parents to travel to the UK. Her parents sign this document, basically allowing her to travel unaccompanied. These are just some of the lengths they'll go to, these people, when recruiting victims. So it's quite sophisticated. They don't just drag people off the street.
In my experience, and I have researched this as a reporter and as a correspondent, very few girls go and say, "I'd like to be a prostitute, can you help me?" You're in an Eastern European country, you get promised that you're going to be taken to London, you'll work as a waitress, you'll work in a hair salon. It ends up being prostitution. That's the key point, is that they enter into a world that they never expected, never wanted, never dreamed to, and they're kept there with threats and force.
The men behind the trafficking of Elena were an Albanian gang. Shaban Maka and Xavier Pisha, both illegal immigrants. We spoke to Mohamed Velu, an Albanian journalist who spent years working undercover to expose Albanian criminals. He told me that the gangsters had tricked their way into this country and had made the UK their HQ by setting up hundreds of brothels right across the country.
Well, in past 10 years, Britain has been a magnet for Albanian criminals. They came in UK in 1998 when the conflict was in Kosovo. They claim asylum, and all that expertise in criminal activity, especially in prostitution, they did bring it in UK.
Albanian pimps are sneaking into the UK because of the huge profits that can be made here. The price of buying sex in Britain is 2 or 3 times higher than in the rest of Europe, and the Albanians have taken over the vice rackets with ease, thanks to their notoriety for extreme violence.
Albanian won a reputation as ruthless, as very violent. So that reputation helped them in UK to open all the doors.
The UK sex industry is worth an annual £275 million, and vice gangs are trafficking up to 8,000 women into Britain every year. That's more than 20 girls every day. I wanted to find out more about the 15-year-old girl who'd ended up in Sheffield. I discovered that her ordeal began at Heathrow Airport the moment she stepped off the plane from Vilnius and was met by Xavier Pisha and Shaban Maka. They were planning to abuse her and sell her around the country.
She was sold at that point in the region of £3,000 to £4,000, we believe. And the guy who bought her, an Albanian guy, took her to an address in London, and within 24 hours of arriving in the UK, she was actually raped and beaten by this man. He explained to her that he now owned this girl.
I got an insight into the horror that awaited Elena by speaking to another Eastern European woman called Anna, who'd also been sex trafficked into the UK.
They told me you have to work because we pay the money for you. And that's the way I find out why I'm here. One client come and chose me. I went in the room. I sent him first in the room, and after I gone 2 minutes, I was asking the girl, what should I do? I didn't know to do nothing. And the girl was explaining to me, do this. And I gone in the room and I saw the client naked. And I started crying. The customer started shouting, you never did this job before. What the hell are you doing here? Where's your pimp?
The gang relied on the fact that Anna would be too terrified to contact her parents for help.
Got two types of treatment. We've got pimps who beat the girls, who put violence on them. On the other hand, some other pimps, they treat girls nicely. They buy them design clothes, making them believe the pimp is in love with her. They feel, well, he loves me. He's treating me nicely, so I'm going to work next day. I'm going to try my best. I'm going to make lots of money. We're going to buy a house. We're going to have a nice life in future. But that is not the case. All the money goes to the pimps. The girls end penniless.
Mohammed told us that the gangs often terrorize the girls and then show them an act of kindness, making them easier to manipulate.
When I went undercover, I met one